Hey there, Bible buddies. I've got another vintage Bible review for you today. I wanted to showcase this one. It is a 1956 World Bible Publishing King James Version. And we'll take a look at it here. I'll kind of go through the specs as we look at it. But this is done in a black genuine leather. You can see the grain on it is very nice. And it does say on the cover, Holy Bible Concordance. It does have a pretty sizable concordance on the back, given how thin it is. And I'll show you how thin it is in a second. There's a nice little kind of a debossed tool line here, and I love it. Kind of sits up instead of being pressed down. It's hard to see in the camera, but it comes up off the Bible instead of kind of being sunken in. It is imprinted here with somebody's name, but that's kind of the price you have to pay, or I guess the risk you have to take with some of these older vintage Bibles. That's typically how it's done. You'll see a lot of times that somebody's name is imprinted here. Thank you, Judith Bird, wherever you are, for your contribution to the channel. Now we'll take a look and see how thin it is. Look how thin it is! So this is definitely would be considered a thin line by today's standards. I think it's less than 1 inch thick. So it's a very, very thin Bible. You can see here it does have the debossed hubs popping up. All right, let me see if I can try and get it. Well, maybe not. Maybe not popping up so much, but they're impressed, and it kind of forms a little bit of a hub there. So you can see there's a few hubs here. It does say Holy Bible on the back. It's got World because it's a World Publishing Bible. And it does say Red Letter Edition, and we'll get into that, kind of the red letter. I'll show it to you in a little bit. Now here's the back. Kind of not much. There's not much on the back here. Sometimes these older World Bibles will say, there'll be like a little flag here that says genuine leather, and that's how you can tell. With older Bibles, if you're just getting into them, I would say if it's not stamped, don't trust that it's leather, because believe it or not, they did some really good kind of synthetic leathers back in the day, and some of them get really hard to tell apart. I'm hoping to make a video here, God willing. I'm going to make a video that will kind of compare some of the synthetic leathers with kind of all the leather options to use as a reference for anybody that's interested in kind of pursuing any of those. So this one is, you can kind of see here, it is pretty yappy. I mean, it's not quite a full yap, it's like a semi-yap. But I mean, that was something that's kind of come in and out of fashion over the years. And some of these World Bibles, you will see them with no yap. Some of them you'll see like this, where it's a pretty substantial yap. And then very, very infrequently, you might see kind of like almost more like a book, where the cover is cut right at the edge of the pages. We'll open it up, take a look at the liner. Now this is a black paper paste down liner. This isn't like a synthetic material. This is just like a very thick, there's like a thick coated paper, and it is textured. I know some of the liners that they use are like it's like a textured, similarly textured genuine liner. Sorry, not genuine liner. Similarly textured leather liner. So I guess that's kind of what they're going for here. It's got that kind of same texture you might see, but this is just paper. It's not leather or anything like that. And you can see, I don't know if there's such a thing as corner work for these older Bibles, but that's it if you want to see it. And it is a very thin leather. Thankfully, this one's very well preserved. There's no issues. There's no issues with this one. You know, I don't have any kind of red spots or light spots or kind of you know, where it's run through the leather in the corners. You usually see it a lot down here where it's real beat up from sitting on the shelf. And it looks like this Bible is even stored laying down flat, which is nice because the leather hasn't warped to kind of cave in or anything like that. So open it back up. Let me show you the back cover, and I'll show you here. So like I was talking about before, this one is stamped genuine leather. There you go. So that's what you want to look for. It'll either be here, kind of on the inside of the back cover, or again, it'll be on the back cover back here. And if it doesn't say leather, I mean, I would doubt it. Now, once you start buying a bunch of these Bibles, or start looking at a bunch at least, you'll be able to tell kind of the leathers apart, whether it's genuine leather or if it's a synthetic. And there's some tells. The biggest thing really to tell on a synthetic cover is that like the angles will be really harsh, especially if it's been sitting. This will get flattened and it starts making some really like sharp jagged angles here and here. And that's usually a pretty easy tell for it being a synthetic cover. All right, sorry, my OCD is kicking in. I have to like remove every single little white fleck of stuff on it. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So this is going to be kind of probably a longer review than what I've done in the past so far, only because I want to really showcase everything that's in this Bible, because again, it's so rare. These don't come up. This isn't something that you can go into the store and just kind of you know, pick up on a whim. This is the kind of thing that you see it on eBay and you have to snatch and grab it real quick because once it's gone, that's kind of it. I mean, World Bible isn't around anymore. And these aren't getting produced. So you can see there's a few sheets here in the beginning. This is a thicker sheet coming off of it, then it gets a little bit thinner. And we'll go to the presentation page. Thankfully this one is nice and clean. It looks beautiful. I love this sort of old school little designs here, these little scrolly designs. It looks beautiful to me. I love that. I'll turn the page, and this paper, this sheet feels almost like kind of like a wax-coated paper. It feels really weird. I definitely wouldn't recommend using like a wet ink pen. It would definitely be a dry ink pen if I was filling this out. And we get to the title page here, Holy Bible. And you can see here that it's produced by the World Publishing Company, right, in Cleveland, New York. There's some information. I love these title pages from these old Bibles. They were done differently back then. I love it, just more vintage and beautiful. We have the back of the title page there. You can see a little bit of the publisher's information. Manufactured in the United States of America. Then we have the epistle dedicatory. Wonderful stuff. After the epistle dedicatory, we get to the books of the Old and New Testament here, the table of contents. And have it alphabetically arranged. I love that. And a key to the pronunciation guide. This is one of those older ones that has a lot of the pronunciation marks. So certainly this key will help explain some of this, because I would imagine this information isn't taught in schools anymore. All right, and here we go. The first book of Moses, called Genesis. Now this is a double column text. It is verse by verse. It does have drop caps, and it does have the kind of the chapter header here. There are page numbers at the bottom, and that's pretty much the extent of it. It's a pretty clean text. There's no subheads. There's no kind of chapter summaries. There are little, up here, there's some like little guides you can see up there, Garden of Eden and the expulsion from Eden. So there is at the top of the page, it's like a little running header that explains kind of the general area that you're in. Now obviously it depends how long that area is. This might not, obviously explain everything that you're reading about. You do have the title, the chapter numbers up here and the book name, Genesis 2 and 3, Genesis 4. This is pretty much it here. Let's take a look. You can see some of those pronunciation marks there. Abel. Right, Abel. So they do get kind of crazy, I would imagine, in some of the portions with a lot of names. There you go. There's the lineages. Let's see if we can get it. So you can see all the pronunciation marks there in the names. Now you can see that this does have a very beautiful red undergold art gilt. That's one of the things that I'm always most impressed by with these older Bibles. We can close it up. With these older Bibles, right? So this is a very nice gold. Look how shiny that is. I know some of these Bibles actually used to use actual gold, like, gold leaf. I don't know if they still do that nowadays. But some of them get really, really, really beautiful. I know like older Oxfords, it tends to almost be like a mirror on here, and it's just beautiful. You can see the curve of the... Sorry, I don't mean to be jumping around. We went inside and now we're back outside. But you can see here, too, the curve. I just forgot to mention it, so I figured I'd hit it back up. You can see here the beautiful curve. It's got a nice here concave and here convex curve of the book block, which helps for longevity. It just kind of prevents the signatures from popping out this direction. The more you use it, they'll start to kind of nudge out that way. So let's get back inside the Bible. Sorry, I got a detour. And there you can see, so this edition is illustrated, so there are some illustrations throughout. Let me go ahead and try and show you some of those. I think that's the first one. You can kind of see it here on the edges, the kind of the delineations here, and that's would kind of indicate where the illustrations are. But obviously they're full color on both sides. With some of these older Bibles, sometimes it'll be full color on one side and then black and white on the other. Sometimes it's like sepia tones throughout, but there's some nice ones. We'll take a look at kind of the biblical text as we go. Here are Numbers, Deuteronomy. Here's another illustration. I love these illustrations. They're just so beautiful. I know some people have a problem, considering some of the depictions of Christ as a second commandment violation. But I think there's a lot of intent behind that. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna think that this is what Christ looks like, or I'm certainly not gonna worship a depiction of him here. But that's your own personal opinion there. So you're more than welcome to it. Here's another one. We have Samuel anoints Saul. Samuel anoints Saul king. So there you go. It's a wonderful picture. And we have David plays for Saul. Look, he's even got a spear. I love it. I love it. Watch out, David. He's gonna get you, or at least try. We have David dances before the ark. We have the caption of... I just realized my pronunciation is probably going to be terrible. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. But the captain of Sennacherib, king of Assyria, before the gate of Jerusalem when Hezekiah reigned, in 2 Kings 18:17. It's referencing there. So this text, I don't know if I would consider this like a reader or what. I mean, it is verse by verse, but it is so clean that I feel like it would make a good reader, and it is pretty small. I mean, it's hand size for me. I've got large size hands, but it's certainly thin enough and light enough and small enough that it would make a good kind of tote around Bible. If you're not worried about damaging a vintage like this. Now you can see, we'll take a look here. I'll try and get it. You'll see some of this. Now this is very standard of vintage Bibles. This is just bleed from the art gilt being applied. Back then it wasn't, I'm pretty sure it wasn't alcohol based. It's probably water based. So if you splatter some water on here, it's going to definitely show. But certainly, it's just soaked into the pages there, and that's what happens. So that's pretty standard for these Bibles. It's not anything to worry about or anything like that. Let's try and get some more. Try and get some more illustrations going here. I'll take a look. And there we go, the rebuilding of Jerusalem under Nehemiah. And I love the chapter title, or the book titles here. Sorry, they're just, I don't know, it's just something so nice about it. Just the layout is so pretty. Now you can see obviously that there's, it doesn't start on a new page or anything like that. The new book, which is all right for me. Daniel in the Lion's Den. Now once we get to the end of the Old Testament here, you can see the end of the prophets. Once we get to the end of the Old Testament, this is pretty standard for vintage Bibles. They'll have like kind of a family lineage section here in between the Old and the New Testament. So you can see this is a little marriage page, marriage dedication page, and we'll open it up. It tends to unfold like that. And you have a birth record here, and then you have your family tree here. But you also have marriages again. If you want to list any of your family marriages, you have any family deaths here, you can put. And then we have the family tree. And the family tree goes pretty in depth. I mean, you certainly have enough spaces here to kind of mark out everybody. And I love it. I love it either way. Like when it's blank like this, cool. I mean, somebody can use it in the future. I'm certainly not going to fill it out, but maybe in 100 years from now, when somebody steals it from my collection, or my son takes it or he hawks it at a pawn shop or whatever the case may be, they can fill it out here. But I also love it when people do fill it in, because it's interesting to see, the time that somebody took and the love and the care that they took to fill it out. And I love seeing people's handwriting, especially with these vintage Bibles. People valued penmanship a lot more. So usually there's some very nice kind of scroll work or some calligraphy, or even just, the cursive is much nicer than people write nowadays. So you can see the New Testament of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and it is a red letter, so they have kind of an indication here. I mean, this is kind of a hint that it's going to be red letter. I mean, obviously a hint because it's telling you, but here's a hint of the red letter, what it will look like. Now, right here, I don't know if it's obvious or if it's visible on screen, but you can tell somebody's finger was here, and some of the moisture from their finger caused the page to kind of wrinkle and distort a little bit. And that happens. This paper is so incredibly thin. Paper back then from the 30s, 40s, and 50s was just a different breed. That's how they can get this Bible so thin. This is what's known as India paper. So it's incredibly thin and it's incredibly opaque for what it is, for the thinness of it. And that's, again, how you can get it so thin and so opaque, right? Because the see-through really isn't that great. I mean, obviously you can see up here because there's some white. But the rest of it, you really don't get a lot of interference from the page behind it. But that was the benefit of this paper. Now, I have heard that the process to create the India paper, the process apparently caused cancer, so that's why India paper was kind of discontinued, and now they're kind of having to play catch up and try and find something that's as good as India paper. So that is one of the benefits of having a vintage Bible, is they do have this India paper that is so nice. But again, it is very thin, so anytime you get moisture on it, you really have to be careful with it, because any sort of moisture will kind of tear up the pages. So with these older Bibles, definitely recommend, don't hold your Bible like this with your, fingers on it, because it'll warp the paper, but, hold the cover like that. Let's backtrack just for a second. I want to show off this ribbon. Now ribbons back then were made of a variety of things. I would say that, I don't even know, I can't say that this is silk. I don't believe it's satin. It's some sort of fabric, but it's very nice deep purple ribbon. And what I do is obviously if it's not satin, it's not going to burn, so you can't seal it with like a lighter. So what I do is I get some like clear PVA glue and I glue the end of it, and that keeps the ribbon together like that, and that's why it looks a little kind of discolored there. But that's basically glue, and the glue won't, the glue that I use is archival glue, so it won't yellow or kind of crack or anything like that, and it should hold up pretty nicely over the years, and it'll keep the ribbon from fraying, at least at the very end. Now we'll get into the New Testament here. Here's Matthew. And we'll take a look at that red letter here, Matthew 5 and 6. There you go, all the red letter you'll ever need, right? So one of the things with older Bibles is the red letter, the red ink that they use for red letter is all over the place. And this even is within brands, right? So if I stay with a World Bible, if I go back 5 years or go forward 5 years, the red letter will be very, very, very different amongst all of them, right? So in this instance, it's not too bad of a red letter. You'll see some that are like neon pink. You'll see some that are a nice dark red letter, almost like a Skylar red letter from nowadays. This one is kind of in the middle of the pack, and I don't mind it. It's not too terrible. Certainly among the possibilities, this is one of the better ones. But there's a nice a nice view of the red letter for you. We'll keep going a little bit. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about. Now you can see here. Now this is going to be common in older Bibles. You can see that see how the red letters are kind of running on top of the black. So what happened is when they printed the Bible, they have to print the red and the black text in 2 runs. So you print this page, right, or it'll be this this page, but it's connected to another page down here because of the way the signatures are laid out. But they'll print it first with the run of black, right, and then they take that same page and they put it on the printing press, and they have like little they're called registration marks. They look like little plus signs on the corners, and they have to line it up as best they can and then run it through the second time for the red. Obviously here we would say that this registration is off, and that's why the red is shifted down like that, and it'll be shifted down on this page and then whatever the subsequent page is that's also connected to this one. And that's just kind of how it is with these older Bibles. The printing technology wasn't what it is today, so you'll see this sometimes, and it's not really a distraction to me. I just have that understanding that that's how it was back then, so it's kind of just a fact that you have to accept. Right, so we'll keep going. See a little bit more of it. We're almost done here. The other thing I was gonna say is line matching. Yeah, forget about it. There was no such thing as line matching back then. So you can take a look. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but you can kind of see a line kind of through here and a little bit through here. Now again, the paper is pretty opaque, so it's not really something you have to worry about. But there wasn't line matching. If that's something that you're worried about, you're just not going to get it in any of these editions. Here we go. We got one other one. I'm sure there's a few more that I missed, but it's all right. The Return of the Prodigal Son and Paul before Agrippa. So there you go. Now, when we come to the end of the Bible, there's going to be a good bit of stuff, and a lot of times these older editions are like jam-packed. Not always, but a lot of times they're jam-packed with stuff. So there's the end, and then it starts the Bible Reader's Aids. And you can see there's a good bit here still of information, so we'll flip through this. We have the contents for the aids. We have how to study the Bible. This is a little article written by B.J. Fernie. And there's just going to be, usually this is kind of standard for the stuff in the back of the Bibles. Usually there's some articles and then some various helps, and they'll have like a concordance and some maps and those sorts of things. So we'll just flip through it. Harmony of the Gospels. Ooh, this paper. I don't know that I want to go through everything page by page. We'll try and get a good little sampling here. There's a little bit of everything. There's some stuff that you would see in study Bibles. Here's some warnings and promises of our Lord, the prayers of Jesus. Then we have the standard kind of tables of weights and measures. Then you have the calendar for daily reading if you wanted to break it up into so many days. And then here's a summary of the book. So this is kind of an interesting take on it. They don't have the summaries and the text itself, but the summaries are here at the back. So if you wanted to read, the quick little summaries that are normally inserted after the book title, or sorry, after the book title, they're back here instead. All this sort of stuff. Here's a brief chronological concepticus. I'm not sure what that is. Have to take a look at that. And then we get into the concordance. And this is a pretty sizable concordance. Again, given the size of this Bible, I mean, it's a good sized concordance. The text is a little small, but, it is what it is. We'll go through it. Let's flip to the end. I do want to do a text comparison for you guys, a font size comparison here in a second. So let's try and get through this, and then I'll just kind of cut out the section where I'm getting that. Okay, so we can wrap up with the concordance, and you have a few sheets here, blank paper, right? And then you get into the maps. Now these are old school maps. You're talking about old school maps. These are old school maps. They can only be black and white. Would it be about the only thing they could be? You just want to be careful of what you use to write on it. Let's go get this. It'll be easier this way. You can see the traditional colors that we used back then. Then you have a couple end sheets here, right, and the flyleaf, and that's it. Now I'll show you this here. These are stampings that are typically found in Bibles. These are like date stamps and production codes. Now this one does say, it looks like 1958, but goodness, it's hard to read, or it's all, maybe it's upside down. Yeah, never mind. It's 8561, you know, 232C. Usually this number, 232C, this is like the model number of the Bible. And then this one might, I would imagine this would be the date. So I have it as a 56. There's no telling. It could be 61. I don't know. I said it was a 56 at the beginning, but I'm just going to say I'm not really too sure. I kind of did my best to date it as best I could. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to grab the font size comparison sheet and we'll take a look. All right, so I made these, and I'm excited to have made them because I'm excited to use them. But this is basically a font comparison sheet, and this uses Times New Roman, which I think is the font that most people are familiar with. And I have capital letters and lowercase letters, so we can compare the capitals with the lowers, because obviously every font is different. Sometimes fonts have higher ascenders or lower descenders, so there's kind of a variant there. So we'll look at the uppercase letters and then the lowercase letters also. So we'll start right here. We'll look at the G right here in Girgashite. We'll take a look and I'll compare it. So it looks to be about a 10 point. Actually, about a 9.5 point is what it looks to be. So about a 9.5 point on the caps. And we'll go right next door. Can I find an M? Yeah, there we go. We'll compare M to M down here in Performed. Yep, and it looks to be about a 9.5 also. Yep, about a 9.5. So we can see that the font in this Bible is a 9.5, and that's what they went with. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. You know, leave a comment below, like, comment, subscribe, all that standard YouTube stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will definitely be trying to do some more of these reviews of vintage Bibles in the future. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks, Bible buddies. Bye.